Do you listen to albums? Since the introduction of streaming services and social media platforms like TikTok, this question has become more and more relevant to conversations around the creation of music. Commercialization is at an all-time high, and yet we still see rappers with millions of followers who can't seem to break 28K album sales in their first week, and the singles that are blown up on TikTok die out within a week. So I'll ask you the question again. Do you listen to albums? Probably not as much as you used to. Have you ever stopped to ask yourself why that is? What has caused such a dynamic shift? Is it the artists, the music, the culture, the fans that have driven you to this point? I mean, you could blame a multitude of factors, but at its core remains one consistent culprit: streaming services. Let me explain. The 2010s was a time when streaming had really started to take off. In 2011, Spotify garnered nearly 1 million paid subscribers, and by 2012, that number rose to 15 million. That was already an era where CDs were falling off by the wayside as iTunes purchases for albums started to become the norm. Once the Spotify model of paying for a subscription to access thousands of songs and genres got recognized and popularized, it killed off CDs and iTunes faster than Netflix killed off Blockbuster, forcing Apple to shift their focus to the development of Apple Music. And this is much like how when people started recognizing that the iPhone had more capabilities than an iPod, why would I keep purchasing an iPod? And why would Apple keep making the iPod? They'll gladly let it die and shift to their new moneymaker. I say all this to explain how inherently these services are not about artistic integrity. They are capitalistic to the core. You used to pay $1.29 for a song on iTunes, and that might have been the only money that you spent on music that entire year. Now you pay $11.99 a month to listen to these same songs on a playlist that you made 4 years ago. So how does this impact music quality? Well, it shifted the focus away from quality to quantity. Artists now churn out singles like they're cooking instant noodles, quick, hot, and sometimes disappointing as fuck. The initial appeal of streaming services was the unlimited amount of access to every song and kind of music. That is why it seems worthwhile to pay an increased amount annually, because look at what I'm getting in exchange. But are you actually getting the true value of your purchase? As we often see, with access comes expectation. Despite having the ability to listen to every song on the platform, which encompasses thousands of artists and genres, there are still only 24 hours in a day, and I guarantee you won't be spending that full 24 listening to music. So when you are, you want to be listening to something that is guaranteed to be good, right? Otherwise, you're just wasting your own time. If I listen to a song and it's trash, I never have to hear it again. It's like the musical version of ghosting someone, which on paper sounds really liberating, but in reality, the implications of that are massive and just leaves you feeling empty inside. If you're an artist who started to get some traction and you release a song that isn't well received, you can practically say goodbye to your career in that instant. You have been moved out of the rotation and put into the trash bin, because there are thousands of other artists that have been putting out music that I like more who can easily replace you. Essentially, there's no need to waste my energy on music that doesn't hook me immediately. To boil it down, streaming has evaporated the margin for error when it comes to creating music. As soon as your momentum stops, you won't be able to just pick it back up again. What has this got to do with the death of albums? Well, they've basically lost all of their meaning. When you listen to projects like Good Kid, Mad City, or Reasonable Doubt, or even Late Registration, they had tangible feel to them. Thematic elements, narrative storytelling, or just a level of consistent style that helped you build a connection to the music. Nowadays, most projects from mainstream artists just seem to be an assortment of hits on an album so that their first week sales look good and that their level of monthly listeners grows higher and higher. It loses that feeling of passion and soul in exchange for what sounds the catchiest at a certain BPM. And can you really blame artists for doing this? If they don't, they get accused of falling off or flopping because their entire album didn't have 10 singles in the Hot 100 chart. And what would be more important to you, your career or your passion? It's great to have passion, but that doesn't ultimately pay for a lifestyle that you're looking for without some sacrifice. It feels like artists are under so much pressure to have a hit on streaming services that I wouldn't be surprised if they started releasing songs about their streaming anxiety. Can't stream for shit coming to a playlist near you. You could argue that this has always been the case though. If you put up bad music, it has always had serious repercussions on an artist, and that would make sense on paper. However, there used to be some room to make a comeback on your next project or release. I'll use the rock genre as an example here. The Red Hot Chili Peppers were a hot commodity upon the release of their album Blood Sugar Sex Magic back in 1991. What an incredible album name, with the project hitting number 3 on the US Billboard charts. Their next album in 1995, One Hot Minute, would not achieve that level of success. It was commonly associated as being the worst project they had created and put the Chili Peppers on a road to critical and commercial decline during this era. So you would assume this would result in their fall off. The Chili Peppers responded by releasing Californication in 1999. The album is probably their most commercially successful piece of work, and is even sweeter when you have the understanding that it came out practically when all the chips were down. Many bands in this era were capable of doing a similar thing. There are albums released by major groups at this time that many people thought were just okay, and then they would go on to release their next project and it was like nothing had changed or affected that group at all. And you just don't see that nowadays. Artists like Chance the Rapper, Lil Baby, Roddy Ricch, and plenty of others are in that boat where fans expected a certain level of performance from them on their last project and didn't receive it, and so the albums themselves did not perform as well well as you would have expected in terms of sales and numbers. Yet, no matter how many singles they drop now or features that they make, they can't seem to recover the fan base that once touted them as being the next big thing. I'm a diehard Chance the Rapper fan, and so I always want him to succeed, but by God, it's not looking good, man. It seems so harsh that having one off day gets you dismissed like this. They will chew you up and spit you out once you start creating something they no longer enjoy. We've become music commitment phobes. It completely discourages most artists from being bold and trying something new, because that might end up biting you in the ass and sinking your career, having every random 12-year-old on Instagram saying you fell off. Streaming has also led to the dissolution of relationships with fans too. It used to be that you'd have a physical exchange of money for an artist's product. That interaction inherently builds a connection due to the sacrifice you're making in order to enjoy their art. And since you have made that investment, you won't just dismiss an album if it doesn't sound like how you want it to from the first listen. And sometimes it will result in a moment where an album you initially didn't like or hated becomes one of your favorite projects from that artist, deepening the connection you have with them. You just don't see situations like that happening anymore in today's music climate. It's all about numbers and percentages instead of artistry and community. Most of these artists get into making music in order to make money too, and a lot of people tout streaming services as being a godsend in this way. This is because Spotify came in and told radio to fuck off and made accessing the music market a lot easier. No longer does having a music career require a record label to make a song popular. You can record a song in your closet, post it on DSPs, and start your career then and there. However, it isn't that simple. In fact, you could argue it's a lot worse now. You need a song to go ultra viral nowadays in order to make any sort of profit. For 1 million streams, these platforms are barely paying artists anything. It is fair to say that most songs that are focused on spreading a message or have a good substantive quality to them aren't always the most replayable. So that means for those artists that make that kind of music, they are going to be making pennies off of their releases. And some artists are okay with this. Most are not. So when it comes down to it, they're willing to sacrifice quality in exchange for streams, and will keep pumping out the same kind of music in order to keep seeing their profits climb. The economics of streaming have inherently shifted the focus away from creating albums, as artists seem more focused on releasing singles to garner this virality. It is much easier to maintain the retention of fans within one song rather than a 12 to 14 song project. And with these singles, if they achieve some traction, they get put onto algorithm-based playlists to garner more and more virality, eliminating the need to listen to a full project. This is because all the recent hits are available to me on one neat playlist compiled by the Spotify gods. As an artist, why would I bother creating a comprehensive or cohesive project if my music is just going to get pulled apart by DSPs anyway? I may as well just put out those 2 songs individually and save my effort to put towards a next batch of singles that can re-enter these lists. If the market has shifted in this way, can you really blame artists for taking advantage of it? If we want it to change, we would have to change it for ourselves, because we dictate the market. The shift to streaming services has fundamentally altered the music industry, particularly in the realm of hip-hop. The emphasis on commercialization and instant gratification has overshadowed the artistic integrity and narrative cohesion that once defined iconic albums in the genre. This shift has not only affected the way music is consumed, but also how it's created and marketed. Artists now face immense pressure to produce immediate hits rather than cohesive bodies of work, leading to a focus on quantity over quality. The fleeting nature of viral success, exacerbated by platforms like TikTok, has further diminished the longevity and impact of albums. Artists who experience a dip in popularity find it increasingly challenging to recover, as the constant churn of new content and the ease of dismissal by listeners create a hostile environment for artistic growth and experimentation. The once personal connection between artist and fan, forged through the tangible investment in physical music, has been replaced by a cold, transactional relationship dictated by algorithms and streaming metrics. As we navigate this new landscape, it's essential to reflect on what's been lost and consider how we might reclaim the depth and richness that albums once brought to the music experience. Personally, I think that albums will continue to suck for a while, but I do believe it'll eventually trend back towards a more healthy median between quality of creation and the feel of the music. Both artists and fans are making adjustments to this new landscape, and it will take time for this to finalize, but it will eventually get there. Let's just hope it's sooner rather than later. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.